We reached the property a few minutes before midnight. The road leading here had no name, just a stretch of cracked asphalt hidden beneath fog and overgrown grass. When the van stopped, the engine noise lingered longer than it should have, echoing between the trees like something hollow and breathing. Mara checked her watch. 11:56 p.m. The others were quiet, their faces dimly lit by the glow of equipment screens. No one said we were nervous, but we all were. Every project starts with the same promise: one last episode, one more location, and ends with silence that never feels like silence. St. Valeria Church stood in front of us, though calling it a church felt wrong. The roof had collapsed in places, and a single bell hung sideways from the belfry, half swallowed by ivy. The wooden doors were nailed shut, but time had split the panels wide enough to slip through. Someone had scrawled "Closed by order of the diocese" across the frame, the letters eaten by rust and weather. Reed unloaded the EMF case while Eli tested the frequency recorder. I checked the main camera's lens. It was clean, but the feed kept flickering, like the light sensor couldn't decide whether it was dark or not. I chalked it up to humidity. The fog thickened each time we exhaled. When we spoke, our voices didn't carry, just hung in the air like whispers under glass. Mara called for sound check. "Channel 1 clear?" "Channel 1 clear," Eli answered. "Channel 2?" Static. Then a voice, thin, female, almost blended into the noise. "Don't film me." Eli frowned. Probably cross-frequency pickup. But when he muted his mic, the voice stayed. We stood there, waiting for another phrase, another proof of malfunction. Nothing came. The forest outside stopped moving. Even the insects seemed to hold their breath. I could hear my heartbeat in the headset, steady, too loud. Reed made the call. "Mark it, baseline interference. Time code 2358. He stepped forward and pushed on the door. The wood moaned, bending like something alive. Inside, the smell hit first: wet earth, old wax, copper. Every beam, every pew, every stone was coated with dust and fragments of glass that crunched under our boots. The altar was still intact, a slab of white marble stained yellow by age, its cloth folded neatly as if someone still came to change it. "Rolling B-cam," Mara whispered. Her voice sounded smaller in the space, swallowed by height. I adjusted the focus ring, panned left, and saw movement in the viewfinder. Quick, deliberate. A silhouette crossing the aisle. I lowered the camera. No one was there. Reed noticed my hands shaking. "You good?" "Yeah, just thought I saw something." He nodded. "Keep rolling. We'll sweep the nave, set up thermal, regroup in 5. The team dispersed. Eli walked toward the choir loft, his flashlight beam trembling across the wooden railing. I stayed with Mara near the altar, logging ambient sound. The air was colder here, and the reverb from our footsteps didn't match our rhythm. It lagged half a second, then half again, as if the building was repeating what we did, but slower. "Hey," Mara said. "Look at that." She pointed to a corner behind the pulpit. The plaster had peeled off in perfect hand-shaped streaks, 5 long scrapes down the wall. The dust was fresh, the edges still white beneath. I filmed close-up footage, zoomed in, pulled focus. The lens caught something that the eye didn't. A flicker, like breath condensing against glass, then gone. Eli's voice crackled through the headset. "You guys hearing this? Channel 3? We froze. The feed was faint, distorted. A rhythmic tapping like fingernails on metal followed by breathing. "Is that you, Eli?" Reed asked. "No," Eli said. "I'm upstairs. It's—" The line went dead. We ran toward the staircase. It was narrow, the steps warped from moisture. Halfway up, my foot hit something soft. I looked down, an old hymn book, pages black with mold. When I lifted it, a shape moved beneath it, sliding away into the shadow. I didn't look closer. At the top, The choir loft opened into a crescent balcony overlooking the nave. Eli was standing near the railing, flashlight aimed down. His recorder dangled at his side, light blinking. "It's playing on its own," he said. The playback was muffled but distinct, soft sobs layered with a low hum, like a chant reversed and slowed until it became human again. Between the sounds, a phrase repeated, almost pleading. "Get out of my house." The signal peaked. Reed reached for the recorder, but the device grew hot in his hand, too hot to hold. He dropped it. The casing hit the floor and cracked, batteries rolling across the wood. Then the hum stopped. Everything did. The air inside the church shifted. All the candles, even the dead ones, leaned in the same direction, as though pulled by a silent current. Our breath made no sound. The wind outside vanished. I lifted the camera again. Through the lens, Reed was in focus, but something else moved behind him. A darker silhouette, taller, head bent sideways as if listening. The shape didn't fade with the light. It absorbed it. "Reed," I whispered. He turned. The EMF meter in his hand erupted. 5 lights, full red, maxed out. Then every channel screamed at once, white noise, hiss, distortion. My headphones filled with a shriek that wasn't mechanical. It rose in pitch, then folded into silence. No signal, no static. Only one sound remained, the bell above us. It began to swing, though there was no wind. Each strike echoed deeper than it should have, like the building had opened somewhere unseen. Dust rained down in fine white sheets. Mara grabbed my sleeve. Her mouth moved, but I couldn't hear words. I checked the camera screen. The red light blinked once, twice, then stayed on. Through the viewfinder, Reed stood perfectly still. The shadow behind him tilted its head toward the camera and smiled. The image distorted, horizontal lines tearing across the frame. I tried to stop recording, but the buttons froze. On the final frame before blackout, something reached forward, pressing against the lens from inside. When the screen went black, I could still see its outline, burned into my vision, pulsing with afterimage. That was midnight, and that was the last clear minute we recorded inside St. Valeria Church. The bell kept ringing long after the camera died. Each toll sounded slower, heavier, as if the building itself were trying to breathe. None of us spoke. Reed leaned against the railing, pale, listening to the vibration travel through the wooden floor. Mara pressed her hands to her ears, whispering something I couldn't hear. Eli crouched near the broken recorder, fingers hovering above the cracked casing like he was afraid to touch it. When the final echo dissolved, we realized the rain had started again. It was faint, muffled by the high windows, more like static than weather. The EMF lights blinked once, then went dark. Every piece of equipment we had, cameras, mics, thermal lens, showed full battery, yet none of them worked. Reed tried the walkie. "Base 1 to van. Copy? Only feedback." Mara checked her phone for signal. No bars, not even an error message, just the blank screen reflecting our own faces. For a second, I thought I saw another face there, behind ours, but the reflection folded when she moved. We gathered at the bottom of the stairs, deciding whether to leave. Eli said, "There's another corridor under the altar." "It's on the blueprints." Reed nodded. "We finish what we came for. One sweep, then out." The door to the crypt wasn't locked, just swollen shut by moisture. It took all 3 of us to pry it open. The hinges snapped free with a sound like bone splitting. Cold air poured out, not damp like the upper hall, dry, sharp, metallic. The flashlight beams barely reached the far end. The passage curved downward in a spiral, walls sweating mineral streaks that shimmered under the light. Eli went first, carrying the infrared cam. The feed flickered green, then black, then green again. "It's not focusing," he said, "like it's reading movement in the dark." Reed told him to keep rolling. Every few steps, The static in our headsets came back, not continuous, just bursts of noise that almost formed words. A syllable, a breath, then silence. At one point, Mara froze. Her beam had caught something etched into the wall, hundreds of small crosses carved into the stone, each one overlapping the next until they formed a single black mass. Beneath it, a date, 1874. The grooves were filled with something darker than dust. We reached a metal door at the bottom. The handle was rusted away, so Reed forced it with a crowbar. The smell that came out was like burned incense and cold iron. Inside was a chamber about the size of a classroom. Rows of wooden benches faced a stone slab in the center. Candles, hundreds of them, had melted together into one frozen wave of wax that reached the floor. In the middle of that sea stood a single camera tripod. It wasn't ours. There was no tape in it, no brand mark, just an empty shell covered in soot. A small tag hung from the handle. Property of Project Orion. None of us had heard of it. Mara began taking stills. Each flash revealed the room a little differently. In one shot, the benches were empty. In the next, shapes sat upon them, dark silhouettes that vanished before the shutter clicked again. Eli lowered his camera and whispered, "I'm getting heartbeat spikes on audio." The monitor lights pulsed in rhythm with something we couldn't hear. 1, 2, 1, 2, steady and human. I pressed my hand to my chest. Mine was beating slower. Reed circled the slab. Looks like a ritual table, or burial. He brushed the dust away. Beneath it, carved into the stone, were Latin words, Domus mea non video lucem. Mara translated quietly. My house no longer sees the light. Eli's feed glitched again. The picture blurred, then sharpened on a figure standing behind Reed. Same height, same posture, but reversed. Like a reflection caught mid-motion. He blinked and it was gone. A low hum filled the room, vibrating through our shoes. All the melted candles began to lean in the same direction, as if drawn by wind that wasn't there. Reed said, "We're leaving," but the door we'd come through had closed. I pulled the handle. It didn't move. The metal was freezing, rimed with frost. Eli started recording audio manually, hoping to capture whatever was happening. When he hit play, the speaker emitted a single breath followed by our own voices, out of order. "We finished what we came for. There's another corridor under the altar. Don't film me." Then a fourth voice. Female, precise, whispering directly into the mic. "Stay until I'm seen." Every candle went out at once. The room fell into absolute dark. The kind where light doesn't return right away, even when you blink. We stood there, not sure which way was forward. The only visible thing was the red dot on Eli's recorder, pulsing like a heartbeat. I focused on it, counted the intervals. It slowed, then stopped. Something touched my shoulder. Light, almost careful. I turned the flashlight toward it. The beam hit a mirror, no, not glass, but polished stone embedded in the wall. My own reflection stared back, warped by the uneven surface. Behind it, deeper in the reflection, were faces stacked upon faces, dozens of them, mouths open but silent. Their eyes were white. Mara screamed, but no sound came out. Reed grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the stairs, shouting instructions we couldn't hear. The headset filled with white noise again, rolling, crashing waves of it, as though the church itself was breathing through the static. Halfway up, the bell above began to ring again, faint but rhythmic. Eli looked back once more into the chamber. The mirror no longer showed us. It showed rows of empty benches, and in the front row, a single figure sitting perfectly still, head tilted to one side, hands folded on its lap. He didn't say what he saw. He just shut the recorder, tucked it into his jacket, and followed us up. When we reached the main floor, the door to the outside was open. The air had changed. Warmer, moving again. The rain had stopped. Our footprints were gone. Reed told us not to talk until we got back to the van. None of us argued. As we crossed the threshold, I looked once over my shoulder. The altar was still there, and for a moment, through the lens of my dead camera, I thought I saw light moving beneath it. Slow, deliberate, like a pulse waiting for another recording. That was the last time any of us entered St. Valeria Church. We didn't speak during the drive back. The van's headlights swept through the empty road, cutting across fields drowned in fog. Reed sat in silence, holding the broken EMF meter like it still meant something. Mara kept checking the cameras, but the screen stayed black. Eli rode in the back, earbuds in, replaying the last 5 minutes of our audio feed over and over. When we reached the motel, the parking lot was empty. The rain had stopped hours ago, yet the van's hood was still wet. No one questioned it. We carried the gear inside, lined it up on the table like evidence. Every device still powered on, but none would play back. No image, no waveform, just a frozen timestamp on every screen, 00:13:47 a.m. All the data had ended at the exact same moment. Reed made a note of it in his log. Power cut, possible electromagnetic interference. It was a lie, but we let him write it. We wanted a reason that didn't sound like what we all knew it was. Around 3 a.m., Eli managed to extract a single file from the damaged memory card. It wasn't listed under any directory, just a blank space, an unlabeled folder sitting between two corrupted entries. The file name read 13-74.mp4. He played it once on mute. The footage showed the crypt, lit by our flashlights, but we weren't in the frame. No one was. The camera was standing on its own, slowly panning across the benches like someone invisible was operating it. The angle drifted past the altar, then down toward the floor. A reflection of movement rippled across the stone, like something shifting beneath it. When Eli turned the sound back on, the laptop speakers crackled. At first, only static. Then a soft hum, the same frequency we'd heard before the blackout. A whisper layered beneath it, distorted but clear enough to recognize words. "Stay until I'm seen." Reed froze. "That's the same voice." Mara nodded. "But it's closer now." Eli paused the video. The timestamp read 00:13:48 a.m., 1 second beyond the cutoff. He tried to scrub forward, but the progress bar resisted, like the file had depth, not time. When he clicked again, the screen jumped to another image, a close-up of the mirror. Not the one we'd filmed. This was a smaller mirror, cracked, hanging in the church hallway above the stairwell. The camera moved toward it in slow pulses. Each frame darkened, like the light was being absorbed into the reflection. Then something inside the mirror moved, a shadow, tall, thin, head bent. The camera jolted. For a single frame, a human eye filled the screen, the sclera completely white. Eli slammed the laptop shut. "We're done." Reed didn't answer. He stood by the window, watching the parking lot. Mara whispered, "It's just corrupted data. It's artifacts, nothing else." But the words fell flat. Outside, the motel's neon sign flickered in patterns. 2 flashes, then one long, over and over. Eli pointed to it. "It's the same rhythm as the recorder light," he said. Reed walked outside to smoke. The camera on the table flicked on by itself. No one touched it. Its screen glowed faint blue, showing static. Then the static pulled inward, forming an image. The empty church nave, seen from high above, as if the camera were hanging from the ceiling beams. We hadn't mounted anything there. Mara backed away. The screen zoomed slowly toward the altar, focusing on the shape of the melted candles. Something was lying among them. A human form, still, partially covered in wax. The camera drew closer until the lens filled with the shape's hand. The skin was white, almost translucent. On the wrist, a tag. It read, "Property of Project Orion." The image glitched, blinked out. The screen showed a new timestamp, 00:13:49 a.m., Reed came back inside, cigarette still burning. He stared at the frozen screen. "Play it again," he said. Eli hesitated. "It's looping on its own." The footage started over without anyone pressing play. Same crypt, same slow pan. Only this time, a faint sound rose behind the hum. Footsteps, pacing, circling the microphone. Then a voice, softer than before. "You left too soon." Mara whispered, "It's responding to us." Eli disconnected the battery. The laptop stayed on, the glow reflected across our faces like candlelight. Then, one by one, the words from the file appeared as text overlays on the screen. White letters on black background. They watched, they filmed, they left. I stayed. Eli pulled the plug from the wall. The light remained. We heard a knock on the door. 3 times. Reed went to check, no one there. But a flyer had been slid under the door, old and water-damaged. The title read, Project Orion, Audio Recovery Division. Below it, a phone number scratched out, replaced with 4 words. "Stay until I'm seen." Reed burned the paper in the sink. The flames burned blue, then white. No smoke. At 4:11 a.m., the laptop finally went dark. When we powered it back on, the file 13-74.mp4 was gone, but a new one had appeared. No title, no metadata. The thumbnail was a still image of the 4 of us, sitting in the motel room exactly as we were now. Except none of us remembered taking it. We sat there in silence. The hum returned, faint but constant, through the unplugged speakers. It sounded like breathing, steady, patient, waiting for the next frame. That's when Reed said, "The timestamp's still moving." And it was. The counter on the bottom right corner was climbing. 00:1350 a.m., 00:1351, 00:1352. Every second counted upward, faster, as though the recording hadn't stopped at all. Then, for the briefest moment, the laptop screen flashed. Our reflections appeared on the black surface. Eli, Mara, Reed, and me. Behind us, someone else stood, smiling. The file never opened again. We tried every recovery tool we knew, every shortcut, every code we could find online. But the thumbnail remained, our faces, frozen mid-breath, eyes turned toward something just outside the frame. Every time I looked at it, I counted one more face than before. By sunrise, Reed said we were leaving. He didn't care where. He wanted the van packed and gone before daylight touched the motel sign. But the air outside had changed. There was no morning light, only a dull gray absence that made the asphalt shimmer like water. The sign that had flickered all night was still glowing, though the power cable hung loose. Eli stepped out first. He carried the recorder in his jacket pocket. "We'll review it at home," he said. "There's nothing left here." When he turned, I noticed the small tag still tied to the zipper pull. It read, "Property of Project Orion." He swore it hadn't been there before. Mara stayed by the table, staring at the laptop. The screen was off, but her face was lit by something pale. "Don't you see it?" she whispered. We followed her gaze. The screen was blank black, yet faint letters pulsed within it, like a heartbeat written in light. "Stay until I'm seen." Reed slammed the lid shut, yanked the cord from the wall. The light didn't fade. It slid across the surface, pooling under the table like spilled mercury. The air smelled like burnt ozone and salt. Then the radio on the nightstand came alive. Not static, voices. Ours. "Reed, check the angle." "I'm recording." "Did you hear that?" Each line was a perfect copy from our field recordings, replayed out of order. But under the voices was something slower, layered, a female tone whispering between the gaps, guiding the sequence. "They filmed. They stayed. They belong." Reed unplugged the radio. It kept playing. Outside, the neon sign flickered again. The letters glowed in new order. "On Orion, on Orion, on." Mara began shaking. "It's not replaying. It's continuing." Her voice cracked. The footage is still recording." It never stopped. Eli lifted the recorder. The red light was back on, blinking steadily. He hadn't pressed anything. The device showed a live timer, 00:13:53 a.m. Somehow, it was counting forward again, as if the night hadn't ended. Reed whispered, "It's syncing with the footage." The moment he said it, the motel lights went out. The only glow left came from the recorder and the thin silver film spreading from the laptop's edge across the table. Reflections appeared in it, shifting outlines, like people leaning close, watching from beneath the surface. I stepped back, heart hammering. For a second, the reflection showed the four of us sitting exactly as we were, but behind Reed stood a fifth figure, blurred and colorless, face tilted down. Mara turned to look. No one was there. When she faced the table again, the reflection moved on its own, its mouth forming words before the sound reached us. "You finished nothing," the radio hissed. A heavy breath filled the room. Then, one by one, the motel mirrors began to fog. Letters formed on the glass, written backward. O-R-I-O-N. Eli started the van engine outside. The headlights pierced through the fog, but the light didn't reach the windows. It just stopped, suspended mid-air like dust in syrup. Reed grabbed Mara's arm. "We're leaving now." The laptop screen flipped open by itself. The same video file was back, this time named Orion 2.mov. It began to play without sound. The image, the motel room from above, as if a camera were mounted on the ceiling. We were in it. Reed standing, Mara crying, Eli outside by the van. Me, sitting exactly where I was now. Eli called from outside. "We have to go." Reed moved toward the door, but the version of him on the screen didn't move. It just watched. Every motion in the room had split. One version living, one repeating. Then the speaker cracked open with feedback. A woman's voice, the same tone as before, spoke over the noise. "You found what we filmed. Now finish what we couldn't." The video shifted again. Not the motel anymore, but the church crypt. The same slab, the same candles, but everything cleaner, brighter, like time had rewound. In the corner of the frame, a camera rested on its side. The label read Orion Unit 3. Someone was standing over it, head turned, mouth moving without sound. Mara screamed. Her reflection on the laptop did not. Reed slammed the lid again. The sound cut off. But when I blinked, the reflection on the metal surface of the table kept moving, lips forming the words we'd been hearing since midnight. "Stay until I'm seen." The power returned all at once. Lights, radio, air conditioner, all humming together like one deep breath. Eli burst through the door. "The van won't start." Reed stared at the recorder in his hand. The red light had stopped blinking. It stayed solid, unwavering. He whispered, "It's still on." I looked down at my wrist. A faint mark had appeared, circular, metallic, a burn shaped like a tag string. When I rubbed it, something thin came loose, falling to the floor. A small label. Property of Project Orion. By morning, the motel was silent. The rain had stopped. The windows were clear again, but the light outside felt wrong. Thin, colorless, like it had been filtered through something that wasn't air. Reed was gone. His bed still held the shape of his body, sheets smooth, pillow cold. Mara sat by the door, knees drawn to her chest, staring at nothing. Eli hadn't slept. He'd been rewinding the recorder for hours, whispering that he could hear something under our voices. "It's still running," he said, "even when I stop it." I told him to destroy it. He nodded, then pressed record. The red light blinked once, then stayed solid. Static filled the room, steady, low, familiar, and through it, faintly, came Reed's voice. "Check the angle." Mara flinched. "That's not from last night." Eli adjusted the gain. Another voice followed, distant, buried in the noise. Stay until I'm seen. The speakers hissed. The room temperature dropped. My breath came out white. The sound changed, no longer playback, but live feed. Footsteps moved across the floorboards, slow and careful, circling us. Eli raised his head. It's here. Mara covered her ears, whispering prayers to no one. The light from the recorder stretched across the walls like a laser, tracing our silhouettes. When it touched the mirror, the reflection lagged a moment behind, as if deciding whether to follow. Then the mirror smiled. I saw my own face, but it wasn't mine. The mouth moved before I did. You're already inside, it said. The reflection raised its hand. I didn't. Behind it, the walls of the motel room were gone. Stone arches, melted candles, the crypt. All of it flickered behind the glass, like a projection waiting for its subject. Eli shouted, "Turn it off!" He ripped the batteries out. The light stayed. The recorder kept blinking, faster now. Each pulse echoed through the floor, through my chest. Every surface began reflecting light, metal, glass, even our eyes. Then, one by one, the reflections started to move on their own. Mara's image turned first, facing me, whispering words she hadn't spoken aloud. Reed appeared next to her in the mirror, pale, still, tag glinting at his wrist. Eli tried to back away, but his reflection stayed put, smiling faintly. The static grew louder, merging with the hum that had followed us since the church. It wasn't noise anymore. It was breathing. Not one breath, hundreds, layered together, moving in rhythm with the light. The recorder's timer read 00:13:59 a.m. Then it reset. 00:13:00. I reached for it, but the air had thickened, heavy and cold. When my fingers touched the metal, the hum stopped. For half a second, there was silence. And in that silence, I heard my own voice, clear and near. We finished what we came for. The room tilted. My sight fractured. Every object bent inward, folding toward the recorder's red glow. The mirror behind me filled with light, too much to see through but enough to cast a shadow. Someone was standing on the other side, recording. I tried to move, but the floor felt soft, like ash. Mara screamed my name, but the sound broke apart mid-air. Her reflection stepped out of the glass, reached for me, and vanished before her hand touched mine. Eli lunged for the recorder, but it was already gone. All that remained was the faint imprint of a tag on the table, smoking slightly. Property of Project Orion. I woke sometime later, though I don't know if later means anything here. The motel room is quiet again, but the lights never turn off. There's no window, no door, only the hum. The recorder sits in front of me, red light steady. It's been blinking for so long I can't tell if it ever started. Every time I speak, I hear my words a second later, coming from the walls. Sometimes they don't match. When I close my eyes, I see the crypt. When I open them, I see this room. They overlap, frame within frame, until I can't tell which one I'm standing in. The timer on the recorder moves on its own. 00:13:01, 00:13:02, 00:13:03. It never passes 59. I think I understand now. The recording doesn't stop because I never left. Reed didn't vanish. Eli didn't die. Mara didn't scream. We were all archived. Somewhere inside this signal we're still replaying, standing, watching, waiting for the next listener to press play. And when you do, we start again.